the story about 14 years ago working on a series. And during the series, I got a little bit overwhelmed, needed some time away. So I took about a year off. And during that time, one of my favorite movies was Spirited Away. And I loved the end. And I wanted to do that somewhere in my book. But it just couldn't fit in the series. So I decided instead, why not do something to the side? So I just did a smaller book, all based on just a simple tale following it in. It took me probably about 2 to 3 months. Um, it's for my writing process, I tend to write out a chapter by chapter analysis. So I'll know what every chapter is before I've written the chapter. And then once I start writing, I don't like to pause. I write straight through writer's block, I get all the way to the end, and then I go back and I fix. So the writing took 2 to 3 months, the editing took about a year. I would say know your genre. I took years of going through mysteries, sci-fi, things that weren't natural for me to speak. When I wanted to write a sci-fi book, I didn't know the lingo. I'd have to research a lot. I knew medieval style talking, writing, and that makes it a lot easier to just get through the chapter. As far as the actual idea goes, if you have the idea for the book, you probably know where you're heading. So for me, once I have an idea, it's really hard to not get to the end. Definitely there's some characters moving forward from this book. Specifically, the character of Mr. Gerbeau is very important and will be in a lot of books, just in a much smaller way. Most of the characters for future books are really going to be brand new, though. I definitely have an idea that's very much inspired by The Hobbit, and we'll be following lots of dwarves and orcs and elves and a whole bunch of other types of mythical creatures, and just I like to try to blend a little bit of new with a little bit of old. So definitely the first one was The Hobbit, but very quickly followed up by the BFG and The Last Unicorn. And as time went on, I started getting to bigger tales. My biggest inspiration these days would probably be the Wheel of Time series. I really like just how intricate it got. And for me, while a simple tale could be fun, I like the idea of it feeding into a really intricate storyline. I wrote my first book at 8 years old. I started writing very young. Very simple stuff. I would just write little mysteries, mostly pictures, but there was something there. And as time went forward, I just kept on trying to find the mystery. To me is always the most important thing. I realized mysteries weren't my genre, but that the mystery within another genre could be fun. I think for most people, they're afraid to just take the chance. A lot of people that I know in our late 20s, early 30s want to write, and I'll ask them, have you done the book yet? And they'll say, well, no, I need to figure out how to get there. And I'm like, well, just start to write. If you write the book and all you have is yourself to read it, you have a good work to read. So it all depends on the day and the feeling. I definitely have sat while my wife kayaks and written at a bench. I'll write on a plane ride, train ride. If I find myself just bored at home, sometimes I'm in the basement and I just start writing. My main place, specifically for Doorways and Debts, was actually at my workplace. I would have time in between breaks or little jobs, and I would just pull it up on the screen and start to write a few pages. And I actually wrote, I think, the entire book at work. So, but it's really just whenever inspiration strikes. I think the biggest lesson would be cultural and dialect. When I started, I really didn't know how to separate out the voices. I could write a scene, but I couldn't write the characters to really sound that different. And as I've gotten through book after book, I started realizing I would research a southern tang for the way that the voice sounds. I would research how do you change up how the word is spelled so maybe it sounds like it's from a different part of the world. And I started picking cultures and areas to really distinguish my books. So the main series, the 14 books that I've been working on, is basically the idea of a world where all of our Greek and our German and Norse and Celtic gods all come from, and that Earth was really a place they visited, and all these mythologies and religions came from inspiration of these visits. And in their world, an apocalyptic event is going on. So the main series is an epic tale, very much inspired by Lord of the Rings or the Wheel of Time. And whereas Doorways and Debts is supposed to be kind of the calm time in that world, where it's just a side story of a fun event, a lot less everything's on the line and more about the individual.